Trump loyalist Steve Bannon has decided to completely ignore the subpoena by the January 6 panel that's investigating the Capitol riots that took place in January. And now he could face criminal charges. But don't get too excited. The criminal charges are actually pretty weak sauce, and I'll explain in a moment. But first, some context. So Bannon's lawyer on Wednesday of this week wrote a letter to the panel saying that his client, Steve Bannon, will not provide testimony or documents until the committee reaches an agreement with former President Donald Trump over executive privilege or a court weighs in on the matter. That is an issue between the committee and President Trump's counsel, and Mr. Bannon is not required to respond at this time, the attorney Robert Costello wrote. Now, this letter is also doubling down on what was communicated to the panel earlier. The letter doubled down on previous instances in which the former White House advisor made clear that he has no intention of appearing for a deposition Thursday, meaning today, as ordered by the committee, and essentially dared lawmakers to sue or hold him in criminal contempt earlier this month in response to the subpoena. So not only is he saying, I'm not gonna respond to this subpoena, I'm gonna completely ignore it. He's also basically telling them, go ahead, charge me with criminal contempt. Now, the panel is claiming that they plan on doing so. Obviously, I'm not like, the reason why I don't have like a strong reaction to it is because people like Steve Bannon get away with things all the time. And then when you look at the details in regard to that specific charge and what's likely to happen, it's pretty weak sauce. And people ignore the subpoenas and they do what they do because they think they're gonna get away with it. And my prediction is he probably will get away with it.
So, well, that's exceedingly likely already based on the direction the Democrats have gone. So there's a lot of theater, they're not actually gonna do anything. So let me explain the details. So, yeah, Steve Bannon is a right-wing white male, and they're generally speaking totally above the law in this country. But more so than that, if you're poor or you're middle class, you could still definitely get in trouble. But if you're among the elites, as Steve Bannon is, he was a very powerful person inside the White House, you know that there's no chance that other elites will ever put you in jail. Because they'll be worried, oh my God, what if it's a precedent? And then one day when I ignore the law, because they have an understanding that the rich get to ignore the law. And the law is only for middle class and poor people. And so it's not for justice, it's for oppression. That's the point of it, okay? So in this case, what did Democrats do? They did criminal contempt. Well, that sounds pretty tough, right? That sounds worse than civil contempt. As the legal experts explain, it's actually not. If you put someone in criminal contempt, you're gonna go through appeals to Senate probably for about 3 years. Although this case is so easy, that might not be the case. So just real quick, let me do a diversion here on would he be guilty or not? Can you use executive privilege? If you're working for the president, sometimes you can use executive privilege. Hey, we were having a conversation about where we're gonna bomb Al-Qaeda. I cannot tell you in front of a House subcommittee about that conversation. There are legitimate reasons for it, right? And oftentimes it's abused. But in this case, he was fired from the White House in 2017.
Right.
This is for conversations that happened in 2020 and 2021. So that was 3-4 years ago. You have no claim for executive privilege. And the person who gives you executive privilege is the current executive, that's Joe Biden. So saying Donald Trump gave me executive privilege for something I did after I left the White House 3 years later is beyond absurd. That should be thrown out of court instantly, right? So it might not take all that time. But the Democrats are hoping it takes that long because they want the appearance of doing something without actually doing something. So what do the experts say is the difference? What could they do? Well, if they did civil contempt, it turns out that's actually much tougher. That means you go to jail now because you're in current contempt, and then the minute you're willing to testify, we let you out of jail. And that's how it works.
Okay. I mean, he's flaunting the fact that he's gonna get away with everything. Totally flaunting it. In fact, just recently in Virginia specifically, he was at a rally, the Save America Freedom Tour in Virginia. And he was essentially telling a cheering crowd that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. Let's watch.
That's why 3 November is so important. Number one, it has put the legitimacy of this regime in question to independents, right? They're sitting there going, something's not right. I think you're correct. right? Number one, that. Number two is to make sure that we get a fair accounting of what exactly happened. We can't go forward without it. Number three is to make sure they can't cheat us again. Number four is return Donald J. Trump to his rightful ownership of this presidency.
He's just gonna keep doing it because he can get away with it. And what I don't understand is, why are the Democrats treating him with kids' gloves? Like, what's the purpose?
No, I know exactly why. Because they're so afraid that if they hold anyone in the Trump administration accountable for the wild, outrageous law breaking, that if the Republicans get back in power, they're just gonna say, but I'm gonna tell you the problem with this line of thinking. They're just gonna say, oh, Pelosi did something wrong too. She's now in prison. But I got news for you. If Trump gets back into power, they're gonna do that anyway. He considered a military coup against America. He considered doing martial law and doing re-election, redoing the election last time. You think he's gonna hold a real election next time? You think he's gonna care about your stupid etiquette? You think he's gonna care about, oh no, I don't wanna be hypocritical, right? No, he's just gonna seize power, you idiots. And the way that fascists take over a democracy is when the opposition is too weak to simply enforce the law. Look, if you said to me, we're gonna arrest Steve Bannon based on his policy positions, I would fight you over it, okay? There's no way I would agree to that. That's insane, that ruins the fiber of this country. So we would never tolerate that. But if the other side or our side says, I'm not gonna follow the law, I'm an elite, and I could break any law I like, and there's not a goddamn thing you could do about it. If you do not put that person in jail, you then say to everyone else, you're also allowed to break the law.
Yeah, in fact, it has emboldened others who have been subpoenaed. So I want to give you those examples. This is the last graphic. 3 other Trump allies also face subpoena deadlines this week. 2 of them, Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and former administration official, Kash Patel, have been engaging with the committee, according to the panel, though it remains unclear if that contact amounts to any form of cooperation. Patel is not expected to appear for his scheduled deposition with the committee.
No, this is insane. You're tolerating wild law breaking. Put them all in prison and say, you come here. And by the way, go through the legal process. I would never say to not go through the legal process. If they do an appeal, by God, do the appeal. Go through all the court cases you need to. We're not like the Trump right wing, where he says, what do we need judges for? No, we need judges because that's how a democracy functions. So go through the right process, but don't be afraid to go through the right process because you're afraid of fascists. So that's how they went. Last thing, if you notice in that little speech that Bannon gave, what's the first reason he said to keep lying? He didn't say lie, as you saw on the tape, but they're lying about the elections, and Bannon knows it. Of course Bannon knows it. Bannon is one of the smart ones. He knows exactly that they're lying. He said, well, basically we've manufactured doubt with independence. Mission accomplished. That's what the tobacco companies did. That's what the oil companies are doing. They manufacture doubt. Now there's doubt as to whether Biden won in some small percentage of independents, but that's the small percentage they need to win elections. So they did it on purpose and it worked because the other side is too weak to fight back.
Yep.
And then finally he said, return Donald Trump to his rightful ownership of the presidency. Ownership. Because Bannon knows they're not gonna win in democracy anymore. They're not gonna win elections. The demographics have changed. Forget the minorities, blacks, browns, they're distracting you with that. Younger voters are so progressive. Luntz knows it, Bannon knows it. They know they have no prayer going forward. So they're now saying that democracy is not about voting in elections, it's about ownership of the White House. And if you ever lose an election, never concede defeat, lie about it till the end of time, manufacture doubt, and then seize power. Because this isn't about America and our system of government. It's the exact opposite. It's to seize power and do what they want to do culturally, which is white supremacy. They think, Steve Bannon has said it 1,000 times. He said it so many times, Trump even once disagreed, okay?
Yeah, and it goes further than that. I mean, you think that we're experiencing crony capitalism now. I mean, they love hoarding the resources for themselves. I mean, we saw that so much during the Trump administration, where he used the office of the presidency to enrich himself, to help his children enrich themselves. I mean, Bannon loves it. Bannon wants that. It goes, yes, there's definitely the white nationalism angle, but while they're also spewing populist rhetoric, they want to further rig the economic system in their favor. That's what's really going on.
100%. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.